goodness, gee, whoa! I feel like you're in a bit of a storm at the moment. It's so frightening, isn't it? Sometimes this pandemic, and then my goodness. Then there's the worry about the climate crisis that's going on at the moment, and also the recession that's going on. It's a really scary storm, isn't it? What do we do? Well, Jesus was in a storm with his disciples, and the disciples were really, really scared. It was really loud and really big waves. But Jesus calmed the storm. And how do we manage our lives, especially when it's scary, especially when things are so difficult at the moment? I would say there's two things we need to remember. The first is to pray. And when I say pray, I don't mean sort of have a complete list of all the things that we need God to do for us now and reel off that list. What I mean is listen to God, be with God, and be still. I love that story. I've probably told it before about Mother Teresa and the journalist. And the journalist said to Mother Teresa, what do you do when you pray? What do you say? And she said, I don't say anything. I just listen. And so the journalist was like, oh, good, we're going to find out what God says to Mother Teresa. And so the journalist says, well, when you're listening, what does God say? And she says, oh, yeah, God's listening too. And that feeling of stillness between us and God, if we can achieve that, even if it's just for a minute, even if it's just for 10 minutes, a wonderful feeling of just being in God's presence and knowing God's peace helps calm the storms of our lives. And the other thing that we really need to remember, which I'm preaching to myself here, is trusting God. It's so easy when it's a storm or when it's frightening, when it's pandemic, when there's a climate crisis, to think, where is God in this? This is terrible, we're going to sink. But Jesus says in the story, ye of little faith, why did you doubt? And of course, we fall over in this respect over and over again. We forget to trust God over and over. And perhaps after we've had a moment of stillness with God, where we're not actually feeling all of those scary feelings, then we can start to remember to trust God. There are things that need doing, though, aren't there? So we aren't just people of prayer and just people of faith, as important as that is. We're also people of action. And if we can each think of one thing to do to help the climate, just one thing, create a new habit with something really, really simple, like maybe walking somewhere once a week instead of driving, then that will help. And I know it's a small thing, but to create new habits, we have to start small. And then perhaps we can work up to something a bit bigger. Perhaps we don't really use our car, we don't really need our car, and we could get an electric bicycle instead. Or perhaps we've realised that we don't really need to have our holidays abroad anymore, and we could holiday in the UK, or we could take some of our holidays in the UK. These tiny steps, even though it seems very small compared with the huge storm of the climate crisis, will help our world. So let's take those steps together. Amen.